Hello, it's Catherine Best Gordon with Adding Carbs to Carnivore, the good, the bad, and the hungry. About 10 days ago, I decided to do an experiment of adding some little bit of fruit and some above ground vegetables back to my carnivore strategy. Now, why would I want to do such a thing? I had a little bit of carb envy. My husband had gone carnivore and he had done very, very well on it. He had lost weight. He lost like 4 inches off of his waist. He felt fantastic and he got a good night's sleep for the first time in years. He was able, now remember, my husband is kind of like a normal eater and he's never been overweight, let alone obese. So he was able to go back, add some carbohydrates back to his eating plan without having any trouble or any side effects. And I was a little bit envious of that, and I was like, I'm gonna try adding some back as well. Just a little bit of history. I overcame obesity almost a dozen years ago by eliminating sugar, all added sugar, grains, and processed vegetable oils. At that time, I went ketogenic, so that meant I wasn't eating fruit. But what I was able to do is I would get rid of fruit as well, and my appetite would go down and I was able to lose weight. I was lifting weights, so I was getting lean and things went really, really well. And at that point I overcame obesity and I have managed to stay at a steady weight and keep it off for almost a dozen years now. But when I went through menopause back around 53, back around 2 years ago, the weight started to creep back on, and that's when I discovered Dr. Sean Baker's Facebook page, and I did his March Meatness almost exactly 2 years ago. It's almost March, and I did March Meatness, and that's how I was introduced to carnivore. And I did very, very well. After that, I added back like a salad a day and maybe a vegetable, and was maintaining and was doing very well. Then just a little bit more than a year ago, I was getting ready to sing at Carnegie Hall. I wanted to look great in my concert dress. I was singing with a big choir, but it's still a very big deal, and I wanted my voice to be really, really good. And if you're a singer, you know that inflammation is the enemy of beautiful vocal sound. So I knew that going carnivore reduced my inflammation, and so that's when I really went for it full bore. Then in June, at the time of my son's graduation, I started adding back some carbohydrates, gained some weight, and was kind of doing that a little bit up until before the holidays. And then, as you may know, if you follow and if you've subscribed to this channel, thank you very much, that then around September of last year, I really went what I call full bore carnivore, and I shared the results in a series of videos, which of course you can check out if you check out the other videos on this channel. Now, after my husband went carnivore and transitioned comfortably back to some carbohydrates, I was like, I want to see if I can do that too. So this is what happened when I transitioned back. So the first thing is, what did I add back? And I probably added back too much. Sorry, that was probably mistake number one. I probably could have, you can see the glare in these glasses, I'm taking them off. If I had just stuck to maybe a salad and a serving of above ground vegetables a day, like 20 grams of carbohydrates, ketogenic, I probably would have been okay. But I wanted to see if I could add back some fruit. And probably the biggest mistake I made is that I didn't really look at the fruits that I was adding back in terms of how high their sugar content was. I thought I was going to be fine with apples and pears, and what I didn't realize is that, now I did the breakdown of it, that apples and pears are actually pretty high in carbohydrate. The highest carb day I had during my experiment was, I had this really big pear. It was like 8 ounces, and just that pear alone, 35 grams of carbohydrate just in that one serving of fruit, which typically when I do sugar-free and keto, that's a major, like the most is 20 grams of carbohydrate. So I was really like adding it in. And then on top of that, I was having a big salad. And then at my third meal, if I was having a third meal, I would have another salad and then another serving of vegetables. Please understand that I do natural intermittent fasting. So I fast intermittently because I am simply not hungry. So I typically do 2 meals a day. I happen to like breakfast. I do a lot of stage work, and if you're familiar with the theater, if you go to the theater, you know normally it goes on at night. And if you're an actor and a singer and a dancer, a lot of times you're not going to want to have a big meal before you go on. So very often just IF happens naturally. You're going to eat breakfast and a late lunch, which is typically what I do. But the point is, I added back a significant amount of carbohydrates. So let's talk about what happened. We're gonna talk first about the good and then the bad. So the good is that I stayed in nutritional ketosis. I have a keto mojo. I get some blood and I test my blood, and day 1 I was at 0.3, which isn't really nutritional ketosis, but day 2 I was at 0.6 millimolar in the morning, and then 0.5 and 0.5, and that, according to Dr. Finney, is nutritional ketosis. So that means that I'm getting ketones in my bloodstream, which is giving me the benefits of beta-hydroxybutyrate. Not going to go deeply into the science of keto today, just talking about the fact that I was adding back some carbs, and even with that piece of fruit in the morning, I was still in nutritional ketosis. And I thought, oh, I'm home free. This is awesome. I can eat a piece of fruit and eat these vegetables and still be in ketosis. Now for the bad news, though. So almost immediately, let's go ahead and talk about the number 1 problem. The worst side effect from adding back too many carbohydrates was the return of hunger and obsession with food. Really didn't happen until day 3, but right around day 3, I noticed that I would eat breakfast, and when I was done with breakfast, even with 8 ounces of fruit, a couple of eggs and a couple of pieces of bacon or a small serving of protein, I didn't want to stop eating at the end of my breakfast. When I'm going carnivore, that never happens. When I'm just eating meat and eggs and some dairy, fish, chicken, all of that, when I'm done with my meal, I'm done with my meal, and it is easy to stop. And I found by day 3 of adding back the carbohydrates, I really didn't want to stop when I was done. There was still this feeling of, boy, I really wish that I could have some more. And then what was even worse is that within about 3 hours, I was really looking for a meal. I was like, I have to eat. Got to start chopping that salad and get ready to eat some more, because man, oh man, am I hungry. And this does not happen with carnivore. For example, it's 10:16. I had a very early breakfast. I had my breakfast more than 4 hours ago, and here I am. I'm doing this video with you, and I feel fantastic. So that's one of the biggest things. Number 2. Digestion. By day 3, I was experiencing really painful cramping. Obviously, I was silly. Why did I add back all that fruit and fiber? If I had only done a little bit, I might have been fine. Or maybe not. Who knows? But I was experiencing cramping and experiencing discomfort. I'm not going to go into detail, but digestive discomfort lasted. It came back about day 3, and it lasted the whole time. Was eating the fruit and the vegetables and the salads, and hasn't really gone away until things feel really back to normal today. And I've been back on carnivore for 3 days now. This is really weird, but procrastination. I noticed that my motivation was going away. I wasn't choosing to practice my music, to play with the dogs, to do my writing. I was continuing to do the things that I was scheduled to do. I mean, I was going to work and I was going to practices and doing the things that I was supposed to do, but I was not doing the extra things that really give me enjoyment. Just really feelings of procrastination, lower motivation, not just in my work and in my creativity, but also in my relationships. And I think that I talked about this months ago. I really started before I went carnivore. I was studying what was happening with serotonin and dopamine, and that's when I found Dr. Altschuler's book, The Alt Sliding Scale Diet, which talked about just get rid of all the carbohydrates, just eat meat and dairy for 30 days and see those levels readjust. And the concept with Dr. Altschuler that he shares in his book is that something about the sugar and insulin resistance, that's what's blocking the normal and positive effects of the neurotransmitters, your serotonin and your dopamine. So you're not feeling good because your neurotransmitters are blocked, and if we get rid of the sugar, get rid of the carbohydrates, that those synapses can open back up and we start to feel good again. And this is definitely what I've experienced. I will mention, though, that what Dr. Altschuler says and does is that once you normalize, go ahead and start adding some foods back. If it doesn't work, go another 30 days. Well, in my case, didn't work very well. because the fourth one was really interesting, swelling of my joints, especially my fingers, pain in the knees, and then red patches on my cheeks. So, and I even got some acne. I got some pimples, which is really weird because I'm 55. But there they were, some breakouts on my face, and then red blotches, which I'm wearing some blush. I don't think that they completely gone away. So clearly some kind of reaction was going on with my skin as well. But I really think that the hardest thing for me, even beyond the hunger, which was very, very difficult to experience again, was the negative self-talk, feeling bad about myself. And it was really weird. It wasn't just like, gee, I wish I had done a better job. No, there was something very, very ruminating, very repetitive. There was something about it that seemed very like this artificial feeling that this was not normal. This was not just normal disappointment. This was something that wasn't quite going right in my head. And finally now, after 3 days, that has ceased and I'm really feeling good and feeling normal this morning. Oh my goodness. That being said, I would like to, Dr. Blake Donaldson, in his book, Strong Medicine, talks about, and of course it was written in the 60s, and this is basically a fat, meat, and water and a little bit of coffee diet. He talks even back then that his patients that he would work with, that they would get to goal weight and then they would try to add back some foods, and he would usually, it would be like about 4 different foods, and he would see if they could tolerate them. If they started to gain weight again, he would say, okay, stop that food. We're going to go back on fat, meat, and water, and we're going to lose another 5 pounds. And then after that 5 pounds, they would retest. And you and I might ask the question, well, wait a minute, so what is the point of that? Why is it that losing those 5 pounds might make it possible for this individual to add the foods back? And here's my theory. Dr. Donaldson didn't explain it back in the 60s, but I think it might have to do with the metabolic effect of visceral fat. So if you've lost weight, like me, and if you've lost a lot of weight, you probably know that the subcutaneous fat, the fat, in your thighs and your butt, that's just underneath the skin, that comes off fairly easy, but it seems like the deep fat around your waistline, and for me, like some of it, at any rate, it seems to come off last. I think that what Dr. Donaldson might have been getting at is that when you go that other 5 pounds, so you've gotten to gold weight, but when you go that 5 pounds more, that you're probably getting at that visceral fat that might be metabolically active and that might be causing some of the issues with appetite and fat storage, and that if you can go ahead, let go of the carbs, get back on fat, meat, and water, release some of that visceral fat, then you might normalize your metabolism and be able to get back to carbohydrates. At least that is my theory, and I'm sticking to it. So what am I going to do going forward? Well, I'm going to do what Dr. Donaldson said to do. I'm going back on carnivore, and I'm going to be doing some weightlifting, and I'm going to be going after another 5 pounds. I am at a healthy normal weight, but in terms of like BMI and body fat, I'm, kind of at the high end. Not so much in body fat. My body fat's actually considered like ideal, optimal for a woman who's 55. But I think I can afford to see if Dr. Donaldson was right, go back on carnivore, lift some weights, lean out about 5 more pounds, and then I am going to retest, but I'm just going to retest probably a salad and a serving of vegetables. Now, I understand you may ask, well, why in the world would you want to do that? Clearly carnivore is working for you. Isn't it crazy to add back carbs? The truth is that I really do like the feeling of being able to kind of eat a similar meal to my husband and my son and my friends. I would like to be able to go out and have a salad. And then the other thing is we have a beautiful backyard vegetable box where I can grow different lettuces. I'm really good at growing tomatoes. I grow zucchini, I grow cucumbers, and I kind of would still be able to like to eat what I grow. Now, if it doesn't work out, fine. Just more for my husband, more for my friends and neighbors, that's fine. But I would like to test it and see, because one of the benefits, because I did, talk about the good. One of the good things about adding those carbs back was I enjoyed sharing similar meals with my family. And the truth is that, boy, the fruit just, it tasted fantastic, and I got a lot of pleasure out of it. That might be one of the issues, is that I was getting a really intense hit of pleasure from that fruit, which is kind of what used to happen to me back when I was struggling with overweight cravings and obesity and sugar addiction. Dr. Vera Tarman talks about this, that those of us who have suffered from and experienced sugar addiction, we seem to be wired sort of differently, in that things that a person who isn't addicted to sugar, they can eat one and then put it down, but we seem to react with this like, oh my goodness, that's the best thing in the world, I have to have more, which is an odd thing. And I think that I may have been experiencing that with some of the higher sugar fruits and all of that fruit and fiber that I added back. There it is, and I wanted to go live so I get this information out to you. And the good news is that I am back. It took about 3 days for me to get my digestion, my well-being, my energy, and my motivation back. Here I am, and making this video. I'm heading to my piano and ukulele lesson, and then I'm singing for a senior group this afternoon, and really just feeling much better about myself. And I hope that you find a way of eating that makes you feel really good about yourself. Comment, like, share, and come on back to continue to see what happens to a woman over 50 who gives up sugar. All right, take care, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you back here soon in the Sugar Freedom Kitchen. Bye-bye, everybody.